So very good. Thank you so much for being willing to take the time out of your busy schedule. I know it has been busy.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Of course, of course. This is real loose and freewheeling. I'll eventually have everybody introduce themselves, kind of what they're interested in. And then if you can let us know, obviously they're interested in your background. You've done a lot of stuff. I didn't know had been quite that busy. I did some research on you, and you got quite the resume going.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been good. A few years. Yeah.
Okay, good to know. Why don't we start, just so you know who everybody is. I'll go around on my screen and just ask them to say hi and introduce themselves and let you know a little bit about what they're interested in. Christy, you want to go first? Make sure you unmute yourself.
Yes, hi, I'm Christy, and I'm a film major here at Keene State in my final year, and I'm interested in screenwriting and also directing.
Cool. Brad?
Hi, I'm Brad. I'm a senior as well in Keene State, and I'm also interested in directing and screenwriting.
No, we aren't successful enough to have two Tom Cooks, but Cole Casper will say hi to you. He took my link.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Cole. I'm a junior here at Keene State, and I'm studying cinematography and acting.
And acting?
Yes.
Okay.
Serena?
Hi, I'm Serena. I'm interested in editing. My major is film production, and I'm minoring in sustainability.
You might want to give a little wave so Tim can
sorry.
identify.
I'm
No, that's
very
okay.
slow, so I'm looking at the grid trying to catch up. But it's
Right, to try to see who it is. Emily?
Yeah. The mute is helping, I gotta say. So go for it. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Emily. I'm a sophomore here, and I'm majoring in film production, and I'm interested in cinematography.
Show.
Hello, my name is Sho. I'm majoring in film, but I'm usually making music.
Hello, I'm Lauren Howard, and I'm a film production major who wants to be a writer.
Hey, I'm Jack Amanon. I'm a production analysis double major, and I'm interested in directing and cinematography.
Feedback City. Michael?
And sound. He wants to work in sound.
I'm Mike. I'm a senior here at Keene, film production major. Interested in indie film, cinematography, all film things really.
All things film. Blake?
All right.
I'm a production major too, but I'm interested in editing mostly.
Did you get that, Tim?
I heard editing. Yeah. Yeah. The key was editing, I think. So I'm good.
There you go. And Ben?
Hi, I'm Ben. I am a junior in film production, and I am interested in sound design and streaming, potentially like streaming concerts, streaming live events. Yeah.
Cool.
As well as doing my own film eventually independently.
And
all right.
In the 20-foot chasm, so it'll echo all the time. So that's who we got right now. Tim, give us a little backstory on. I asked everybody to do a little research on you, so they knew from where you came and some part of your professional background. But they're all obviously interested in learning how you got your start and what got there.
Well, first, I'm sorry y'all had to do any research. I'm sure it took like seconds, but I always wanted to work in film and TV. I'm from Vermont, upstate New York and Iowa, and had no connection whatsoever to any of this. So when I was a kid, my mom actually, there was a movie coming to upstate New York and it was called Sleepaway Camp. It's like this cult horror film. And she got me in as a background actor, which you guys all know what background actors are. Like they walk from here to there and they try not to look at camera, which I totally did because I was so fascinated with movies. There's a scene in there where literally I kept just staring at the camera. And then finally they're like, could the kid in the blue hoodie stop looking at the camera? That'd be great. So from there, nothing happened. I bounced around. I moved to Iowa. I wrote a play in 8th grade, and then I wrote and directed my first feature film, shot it on high 8 and edited VCR to VCR. So you're like stopping and starting and stopping and starting. And then we did 3/4 inch. And then Tom would know the title of this movie. I'm sure it's based on a flying beaver. So it's hilarious and stupid. But from there, moved to New Hampshire for college. Before I went to Keene, I went to another school, interned at a TV station, ended up doing industrials with a guy who I think is still doing them. This guy, Chris Conroy, he's Heartwood Media. So I worked with him for a while, and then I transferred to Keene. Worked on a bunch of different projects for friends. I would obviously focus on writing and directing, but then I also DP'd friends' films, and I wrote music for their films. And then from there, interned with Ken Burns, got a job at Florentine. And then little by little from there, bounced around. I did independents for a while. I produced and first AD'd indies for a few years. And then I was in upstate New York again, taking care of my dad, and he passed. And then I had nothing to do. I didn't know what to do. And a big movie came to town called The Time Machine, with Guy Pearce and Jeremy Irons. And I got a job as an office PA. They said they were going back to LA to continue filming. And they said, hey, if you are serious about moving to LA, we'll hire somebody on until you can get out here. So I packed up, moved out, showed up on Friday with my good friend, Justin, who Tom knows, and started work on Monday. And then from there, it just led to different features and different jobs. And so I worked as a production secretary, an assistant to a producer, and then I worked on movies like Old School and Dodgeball and kind of stuff earlier in the 2000s. And then met a director on Miss Congeniality 2, which I also was able to have a speaking role in, and I still get residuals from, $20 here and there. And John knew I was focused on writing and directing. I had just been a top 10 director in the 3rd season, the horror season of Project Greenlight. And then from there, he introduced me to multicam sitcoms, which I started doing as an audience switcher. So you kind of cut the show live for the audience, moved up to associate director, and then directed a few episodes. And most recently, I just wrapped a show for HBO Max, and I do a pilot in December. So there's the very long answer to that question.
Wow. So you been kind of all over the place. Now, before I've got 5 or 6 questions that the students have submitted, but
okay.
Would you say, and again, with the various guests that we've had, this is the 2nd year I've offered this class, and I like to, again, get guests such as yourself who either have direct connections to Keene State and or experience in the industry, which you have both. And everybody has a different explanation as to how they got into the business. Students will ask, will submit questions like, what's the best way for a new graduate to find work? And I say, well, if Tim knew that, he'd write a book and make $1 million, because it's always different.
Yeah.
Say that in preface rather, to what seemed to be your administrative background. You obviously got in with your early work, doing administrative work. How difficult or unusual would you say it is for someone doing that kind of work to make a break into the more, for want of a better term, creative side of things?
Sure. Yeah. It's a great question, I guess. A big part of it was just letting people know that's what I wanted to do. And, you know, yeah, like I'm sure everybody has said, there's a million different ways to get in. And a lot of it comes from friends, your network, you know, that's how you're going to really get a start. But then the rest is up to you, because you have to be positive. You've got to show up, which, you know, there's that old thing of like, you know, showing up is a big part of it. Or I don't know, whatever, that's not the saying, but you know, and then just letting people know that that's what you want to do. I think earlier on, I made the mistake a lot of the times of just kind of focusing on the work and not really speaking up. And then little by little, once I did start to say, hey, I want to direct, I want to do more, that's what started to open up the doors. And then I found, because people knew me and because I had a good relationship with them, and that was from all over the board, of from directors and producers to, you know, grips and PAs or whomever, you know, I found that everybody was willing to support, and I could never have gotten to this job had it not been for you know, meeting John Pasquin on Miss Congeniality 2, and you know, he's definitely one of the people that brought me along, and I think the biggest part of why I even moved along was not embarrassing him and just doing the work and working hard, and so that was a big part of it. Was even though I bounced around quite a lot, and that's the other part too. I've done documentaries and reality and industrials to features and TV, so it's pretty varied.
Right. Great. Thanks. Serena, you have a question for Tim?
Yes. So I just wanted to ask what your experience was working on the movie Old School.
So Old School basically came about from, I had been an office PA in Time Machine. The same production coordinator went on to that job, and they called me a few days in and asked me to come on for a few days. And then it just turned into the entire show. And it was such a fun experience, you know, working with Todd Phillips and working with, Wolf. So there's two parts of this, really. It's like there's the creative side, which is just so fun to watch how people work. And then there is the administrative side, which is, I've got to go drive a script to somebody's house. And you're like, it should be really fun and amazing, but it's Will Ferrell and, you know, that's great and everything. But the highlight of Old School was, have you all seen Old School? I don't know. Are you familiar with it? So there's a scene where they have a party in the backyard. And the highlight was literally waiting for hours for Snoop Dogg to come out of his trailer, because we were all just sitting there. There were hundreds of extras all in the backyard. We were just waiting because some actors were hanging out with him in his trailer, and they just were inside the entire time. So it was literally hours, and it was quite eye-opening, but it was a great experience.
Great. Lauren, I guess you're next.
Mine's sort of vague. What are your thoughts on the recent strikes in the media industry?
Well, there isn't a strike yet. There was the threat of a strike, if you're talking about IATSE, and we'll see if the contract is ratified. I think they still have to vote on that. So I'm part of the Directors Guild. I'm a director in the Directors Guild, and you know, you're familiar with the DGA, WGA, STAG, IATSE, and then IATSE just covers pretty much everybody else. And one of the things that really opened my eyes to it, because I've done my share of long hours, and I've definitely seen both sides of that, and also been on both sides creatively and, you know, administratively. But well, I guess what opened my eyes to it and why I supported them is because I found out camera operators on this HBO show were making $17 less an hour than they would on a network show next door, which to me made no sense because the work is the same. It's just, if not harder sometimes on kid shows type stuff. And I don't know if they weren't going to threaten a strike now, when would they? Because over the last few years, especially, you know, those quote unquote new media deals that we all made, starting in mid 2000s or late 2000s, obviously new media is not so new anymore. And it's not just as simple as like a YouTube show. It's, these are full blown networks now. So we'll see if they ratify it. Obviously I want to keep working, and I would hope that a strike is averted. But I would fully support them because they're the ones that, they're there before I get in and they're there after I leave. And, I fully support them. And it's like, you can't do any of this without your crew. And it's really easy for me to say, I need to get this or that or that, but I'm not the guy who's got to go up there and like figure out how to rig some lights. And I'm not the person who's got to sit there late at night editing the show and try to make sense of the crap I shot. So yeah, it will be interesting to see if it gets ratified. I think it will, but I could say there's other friends of mine like Mike Cahoon and a few other classmates who are on the camera side. So I'm curious to hear how it goes.
Great. Obviously, a topical subject, and if it's too close to you or for whatever legal reasons you don't want to address this, the tragic situation around Alec Baldwin's shoot and arrest, I've heard people in very vocally supportive of the IATSE strike feel that this is just another reason to look at the conditions on sets. Do you agree or disagree, or do you want to talk about that?
I'm happy to talk about it. I'm also not that informed besides probably what all of you have read. I haven't really heard much, but I will say this is that, I was raised around guns. My dad was like a Methodist minister, but of course you're like, why would you have guns? But, so I'm well aware of like the rules of treat every weapon like it's loaded, blah, blah, blah. Or not blah, blah, but you know what I'm saying. The biggest mistakes that all of those situations have been, and there's been a few deaths, The Crow, and there was the other guy, Cover Up, back in the 80s, the TV show. But it always comes down to respecting the weapon, and the AD should have never been handling that weapon. So I think it goes back to a few of those fundamentals, but also there's going to be so much more information to come out. I've been reading things like the AD, because of COVID reasons, had to do it, which I don't buy at all, because every show I've been on that has handled weapons, even if they were never going to fire, I've always had the prop masters always held up the weapon, showed that there's no, cartridge, or, that showed there's no bullets, there's no live ammunition, yada, yada. And I think it's, obviously there are certain dangerous sides to using any of these things on camera, whether it's, weapons or it's even vehicles. But these days too, I don't know why you would need to have a firing blank even, I guess just in my own experience these days, a barrel flash you can do so easily in visual effects, and you can supplement it with lighting and try to make it more real. But even sometimes with driving plates, there's few reasons to kind of put a car up onto a moving trailer, if you can get something similar with green screen or blue screen. But yeah, it's a tragic case, and I think there's going to be so much more information to come out of it. And I think it'll help support the IATSE position of safety on set. But I also don't know, with a show like that sounds like they were cutting corners,
Right.
how much would have been different, sort of like the Midnight Rider case from, 10 years ago now. If you remember with that, they all went onto a bridge, a real train was coming. They didn't have permission to be on the rails, and tragically, I think it was the second AC lost her life, and they should have never been out there. So it's things like that too, and things can happen so fast, and you have to. Sometimes it gets so annoying on set when things go really slow. But sometimes you have to just take the time to do it. And that's part of what I think IATSE is getting down to, is that if you don't have enough turnaround, if people are tired, mistakes get made, and it's easy to make mistakes if that happens.
Well, my understanding, that's the exact situation with Twilight Zone. That
Right.
they were running over and something like that happens.
Well,
okay,
and
thank you.
Twilight, did you,
Yeah,
I don't
go
know if
ahead.
you read any of that, the transcripts from the court case too. Twilight Zone is also just so tragic because those two kids that were in
Yeah.
that, I don't think the parents really spoke much English and really understood what was happening. And, and that's another case too for why visual effects are so important. Like why are we ever having a guy running with two kids in his arms in a swamp? You would never have that today, but it's a tragic case.
All true. Show, you have a question for Tim?
Yes. My question is, how do you maintain the passion for filmmaking and creation art in general? This is my question.
How do you maintain a passion for it? How do you I guess, it's really easy to get into the grind and, every day's, there's always something every day. But I think for me, especially, something I always wanted to do, it's, I have my quote unquote day job, which is on TV. And then I also have my own side projects that I want to do as well. And I think, a big part of it is just, I really love what I do. And I work with really fun people and we have a great time. There's great food. We get paid well. And I say this to everybody that I work with, we're inside, like we're just, we get paid well, we get food, free food. Like there's really not too much to complain about when you compare everything else. So it's, and working with the different people that I've had a chance to work with, that keeps it really exciting. When I meet somebody that, like I was at a Christmas party and I got to meet Lawrence Kasdan a few times and talk to him. And so if you're even remote, Big Chill, Empire Strikes Back, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Silverado, Phil Alden Robinson, who I was a big fan of, Field of Dreams and Sneakers. So people like that you get a chance to meet also keeps it exciting. And then, it's the one thing I'll say to that too, is that even though the money can be good, it's just too much of a grind. There's too many hours and too many personalities involved to not love doing it, because there's other ways of making a bunch of money. But, if you don't really want to do it, then focus on something else. But yeah, the passion has always been there, and some days are better than others, but
So would you say you've been fortunate enough to work with crews where everybody's pretty amicable?
Yeah, and I've also been there where they're not. And these days it's not so much, and I think it's not as much these days. we all, at the beginning of every job, you've got these, I think they're called respect in the workplace type seminars. And it's really about liability for the company, but but it's a way to remind everybody, hey, tensions, you can get frustrated, tensions get high, don't say certain things. It goes through everything about sexual harassment, and a lot of it is just being careful or being mindful of what you are saying and doing. So yeah, I think things have become very amicable, but then there's every now and then you've got someone who can be challenging. And, I see more often than not these days, somebody who is okay at their job that consistently works, but is pleasant to be around, versus somebody who's an amazing talent and is just a difficult, mean person, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Jack, you have a question for Tim?
Yeah, I do have a question. So I saw that you've worked on many feature films as well as television. And I was just wondering, what would you say the kind of biggest difference, or what the difference is between working on a longer form film versus a television show is like?
Well, the two biggest things between features and TV, TV tends to be more of a writer and showrunner medium. Features tend to be more of a director medium. So that in itself has a little bit different of a dynamic. Every now and then on a TV show, you'll have a director who sticks with the show from beginning to end. And that gives it a certain sense of continuity that you don't normally have. The hours on whether they're single cam or on features can be, and going back to the Odyssey thing, can be really long and grueling. They've got the quote unquote Fraturday type thing where you work really late into Saturday night and your Saturday's wasted, and then you're back to work early Monday morning. So the hours can be different, but then also there's something great about having one consistent feature that you're working on that gives you the luxury somewhat to focus just on that one storyline with those characters and those actors and that same crew, whether you're on it for months or you stay on through post or something. So there's definitely the way that the day gets approached can be different, and even down to whether you're on stage or you're on location, that can also play a big part of it too. There's some shows that are all just on stage. I hope the gardener isn't, sorry, there's somebody next door with a leaf blower, sorry.
What about with that question, my immediate thought, and granted, I was involved a while back, not exactly working that time you are, but between television and film, I found film, the pace to be much,
Sure.
And I fell in love with the action or the speed, the pace of television production.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain extremes, and that's a great point. The pace is certainly different on features, can be a lot slower, unless maybe you're working with like Clint Eastwood or somebody who does 1 take, 2 takes, and you're moving on. And he does a lot of coverage, but he moves really fast. But generally, I can remember hearing stories of friends that would go on to these shows and they're like, you wouldn't believe how much film we shot for just 1/8 of a page. And we spent the entire day doing just this little short thing. And meanwhile, I've also seen it on TV. I mean, you have the other extreme on soap operas where they're shooting like 60, 70 some pages a day and barely even spending time talking about where you hit your marks because they're just moving so fast. So the speed of it certainly is different. That's a good point.
Sure. Ben, you've got a question? Or a couple, actually.
Yeah, so my first question is, as a director, how closely do you work with sound and music? And would you say that typically you work with these less than, more than, or equal to the way you would work with acting and cinematography? Because I've been kind of wondering about like what I know the director influences all creative aspects, but I was wondering about that particularly.
For me, sound and music is huge, and I would say I feel like you can get away with worse picture than you can with worse sound. And that's from production sound to sound design. So for me, it's really important, and I'm always thinking about, even before we get started, just what sort of things might be on camera that would influence some of the things. And some silly example might be, if you're hearing water dripping, you might include something in the shot. But even then, there's certain other parts of it. Music is a big part. I still write music. I mostly do it for my own projects. And obviously things are so much different than they were then. I mean, even in college, when we were recording things onto Magstock and you're cutting and all that kind of stuff, versus now where you're just throwing everything into a track, and you have a lot more flexibility in the audio that you can play with, which is sometimes better or worse depending, but having some idea going in of what I want to hear. I love what David Lynch does with sound design. One of the biggest things I miss is music. There's For me, the Marvel movies just don't have any music to them. They're a lot of just sound. But I really miss music, and even to this day, I have a bunch of film scores that I picked up that I bought the notation because I'm curious to see how somebody like Jerry Goldsmith approached scoring Poltergeist or something like that. So it's very important. And of course, the other part of that is when you're doing TV, sometimes you have no say whatsoever, and it's the showrunner, and you turn over your cut, and then it gets butchered, and then you have no idea. Like, I've worked on these sitcoms where you have a live audience that comes in, and I'll hear the laugh track, and it sounds normal, it sounds real, and then by the time it ends up on the air, it sounds like this goosed, fake sound. So that to me also is really important. And there's only so many ways to fix that. But.
So you alluded to your ages ago experience in college in film. Right now, are the classes assignments for next week are to do some reports on graduate school and whether that's valuable or not. Being completely honest, because we're all friends here, did you find your training in film school valuable, or because
This is being recorded, right?
it is.
Well, okay, so yes, I did. And one of the things that, so the biggest thing for me was I always just wanted to get my hands on the equipment. And that's one of the things that I was able to do a lot sooner at Keene versus going to like NYU or something. I think if I could go back and do things over, I also would have spent more time doing, studying abroad, also taking other classes and not being so focused on film, taking, history, literature, art, anything else, just because so many of those things influence what we do. Grad school, I don't know. I think if you're going to go to, should somebody go and pursue something at AFI, those kind of things can open some doors, but at what cost? I don't know. School is, as you all know, is really expensive. And I don't know if going to grad school would have been something for me. I certainly learned a lot better by doing. And again, going back to my point earlier, that was what really was good for me at Keene, was just being able to get my hands on equipment sooner and trying every job. And that's one thing too. I think a lot of people make the mistake of just focusing on the one job that they want to do, but sometimes you gotta just figure out how to set up a light, or why do you have a microphone angled at a certain position. So those things too, just getting a lot of different kinds of experience. But that being said, yeah, grad school can open some doors, and it can definitely make some introductions that you may not always have. But depends on what you want to do. There's plenty of college dropouts in Hollywood.
Well, and as I recall, when you were doing everything. If there was a project going, Tim Clark was on the set in some capacity. And
yeah,
or maybe not strangely, but more often than not, I recall as a cinematographer. You shot.
Yeah, I did a lot of shooting on film mostly, and then on digital, and then there was one semester too where I think I did 4 different student film soundtracks. That was, I guess you guys, where are you guys right now?
We're in Drennan.
Oh, okay. So like at the basement of Drennan, at the basement of that building where we all used to be, right? They had those brick rooms. And I can remember night after night, I was in there locked in this closet and just playing on my keyboard and recording stuff for Justin's film. And then they'd throw it onto the mag stock. And then, so that kind of a thing was a few very busy semesters there. But yeah, trying everything out, even on, you guys still have like production 3-4, right?
Yeah, it's called Capstone.
Okay. So yeah, like even then when it wasn't even on my project, it was on somebody else's, I would still go, in the middle of winter and just go help haul stuff out like a PA and just help set up stuff out in the middle of nowhere and help them film. So just getting a lot of different experience is a huge part of that. Yeah.
And was that more so that you could, as you say, and a good director knows a little bit, if not a lot, about everything? Was that more your drive, or were you just love being on set?
It was both. I mean, I just loved being on set. I loved seeing how everybody would approach things. I think one of the things I still learn about today is watching how people work and how certain people talk to actors and what resonates with them. And I take what works for me and steal it if it works, and also don't do something if it doesn't seem like it gets the result. So yeah, in that case, it was definitely both. And then part of it too was I was kind of a new kid at the school, and I wanted to meet people that were in film and were also passionate about filmmaking. And it was probably for me the first time I really was around a lot of other people that really loved this stuff. So that was exciting for me too.
Cool. Anybody got some contemporaneous questions for Tim? Jump in if you would. Ben, you got one in?
Yeah, so this might be slightly vague, but and I know it depends a lot, but as a director, what visual style do you find yourself attracted to? Like, what kind of lighting, harsh, soft, what kind of lenses, like wide, telephoto, normal, like what would you say your visual style is, or what you are drawn to?
Every project is different. So depending on what the story is, that definitely drives it. But I find myself leaning more towards, I love Roger Deakins, and I love seeing how he approaches a scene. I definitely lean more towards my own personal stuff, the visual sense of kind of a little bit more epic or just wider. I love, I've had a few opportunities to shoot anamorphic, and I love the look of that. But again, and even to the point, okay, so I tried to get one of our shows to go anamorphic and it didn't quite happen, but even to the point of trying something different, even on these multicams, you get into situations where they want to try and make it look more single cam, but then when you start to do it, they really liked more of that multicam look. So, sort of my day job and sort of my passion, sometimes don't always line up, but at the same time, the story really is going to drive it. And that's the tricky part, is trying to figure out what the story is and what it really is and what it needs. Ron Howard is a director who I think is kind of a chameleon. He's done so many different kinds of films that, I would say doesn't really have a style, in a sense that like each film has its own sort of world to it, and and some lean one way like Far and Away or something, and some lean another, but I also say too, like, kind of going on to that point, sometimes there's things you don't know what you don't know, right? And there's so much information out there now, whether it is going to rogerdeakins.com and having a chance to go onto his forum and talk one-on-one and ask questions about how he approaches something, to just being able to see a bunch of behind the scenes and go to different things like Art of the Title, or I can't think of it, when there's every film is a painting, all these different resources that are available that might introduce you to something else. And I got to say too, being at Keene, one of my favorite films that I came out of there was a film called The Night of the Hunter, which, do you guys know who Larry Benequist is? Do they know Larry? Okay. So I took this film expressionism class with him, and I came away loving that film, and it was a one-off by Charles Laughton. But, so those kinds of things too, that you might not know to find on your own. helps kind of broaden your language and your film language. But I kind of have a question for a few of you. It sounds like there's a bunch of different writers and directors. And for those, I guess, that are focused on that, is there something specific that you're trying to do? Is it more independent? Is it more studio? Is it, and I guess what kind of things attract you? I mean, I guess I have a better question in general, which is, why do you guys want to do any of this? What made you join the film program and pursue this? And I know some of you are focused more on music or DP or cinematographer.
I'll try to encourage them to answer.
I'll call on you like a class.
You should do that, but real quickly as a preface, one of the things that I found, and I don't know how involved you might be with, I don't know, do you work with interns from USC and UCLA or anything like that?
More often than not, it tends to be DGA trainee or it ends up being PAs. Yeah.
So those are some of the people that I was involved with in graduate school, and I found a kind of lethargy. They're just doing it because it's expected of them. When I came here to Keene and started the production side, and you and your contemporaries really personified this love and dedication to film, and you'll do anything to do it. And that's one of the unusual things I find about the students that come here. But why don't you go ahead and you see the names, you call on them, Tim.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Christopher Kelly or Chris. Christy? I can't hear you.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Personally, I've just had a love for film my whole life. I own over 600 films on DVD, and I own some TV shows too. I even watched the first season of Home Improvement, which is it's a good show. And I just love the creativity behind it. And I'm, planning to write a big script. So hopefully maybe I can break into the industry with that script, and maybe I hope to direct it, but it's too ambitious for just an independent film, but I really hope to go somewhere with that.
Why is it too ambitious? Is it like sci-fi, aliens, like what's the?
Well, the whole thing is, not too long ago, I got back into the world of professional wrestling, and I've decided I'm going to write a script on it, which essentially it's going to be like a floating timeline. It's and all the there's such an echo, so it's kind of hard for me to focus, but it's kind of a floating timeline type of thing, and it follows someone through the wrestling industry, and it's just going to be, I just love wrestling history overall, so I'm going to probably do something with that and loosely base things on things that actually happened in the industry. Awesome. And it's probably not going to get a lot of support from the wrestling businesses itself, because it's going to focus on some negative things that have happened in that, and stuff like that.
So, hey, real quick, is it my end that's giving the echo? Because I can throw on headphones too or something if that's... I
don't think so. I guess I'd ask Misty. I think
Yeah.
Misty from our connection.
It is?
Yeah, so basically it's the room. And so if you were sitting there and you have your audio on so that you can hear, and then somebody else, it's just kind of, bouncing around the room. So do your best to, if you've got headphones, plug them in. And I think I'm going to bring down an Owl Pro. See if
there we go. How's that? Is that better?
I don't know that it's actually, it's really, the sound is bouncing around in their space.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, yeah.
I really just wanted to humble brag and wear these AirPods. So I'll leave these in for now, but Christopher, or thank you. Sorry, Misty. So yeah, there's a couple things there too. I would say, like, and I know you're not asking me, I'm just chiming in, but I think the, I would say one of the things with those kind of films is that they can be scalable, and you can do something at a much smaller scale and a much bigger, like, The Wrestler or somebody like that kind of a movie where, that's not your movie, but I'm just saying in terms of, that's one of the films that you watch and you think looks really small and low budget, but it was actually a relatively expensive movie to make. And there's this weird thing too. There's no real mid-budget movies. And it's becoming more and more this way, where these two extremes of the $100 million something or the $100,000 something, or the million, 2 million, somewhere in there. And then there's certainly micro budget, and there's films that come out that make a bunch of money. And there's plenty more that come out that you never know about or anything like that. But and then COVID has obviously thrown a weird wrinkle into all this, because my first thought is crowd scenes, and in any kind of situation like that, you've got the extra cost of testing and everything that goes with it. But I think eventually we'll kind of get through all this craziness and things will kind of normalize a bit more. But that's awesome. And I think that, that's exactly the right kind of thing to do. Not that you're asking me, but like, you're passionate about it. That's something that you're focused on. And that will come through in a meeting a lot more than somebody who comes in and just says, well, I don't know, I just want to direct this thing or something. Yeah. And also I will say too, one more thing is that, these days things can be done. And I say these days, but it wasn't as easy to film, when you had to shoot film or something like that. And there's certain disciplines that come out of shooting with film, but and I know you're not going to do this, but you could easily shoot something on your iPhone and edit the whole thing on your phone. There's so many apps that are available that make things so much easier and more streamlined. So take advantage of all that kind of stuff. But I wouldn't say that it's too big budget, that, you might have a chance at putting something together, whether it's through Kickstarters or, something like that. But yeah, that's great.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Who else is going to talk to Tim about passion? Come on, Ben.
Wait.
Yeah.
Oh.
Was there something? Did I miss someone or? Okay.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so, with me, the thing I thought was interesting in my experience was that, I always knew I wanted to go into film, from a very early age. I always loved playing pretend when I was very young, and then my dad showed me Indiana Jones and Star Wars, and I developed a real passion for like action films and all that. But what I found interesting is a lot of the stuff that it really wasn't until very recently that I discovered what specifically within film that I wanted to do. And that was a lot through my own experience at college, like doing AV tech and doing, I actually did radio and music with my friends. And I didn't know what specifically I wanted to do within film, but then I realized, through developing these skills that, you can't really do just film, because film is so, as a concept, it encompasses so many things. It encompasses sound, image. It can be a live event, a recorded event. So yeah, it was through that experience that I realized I wanted to do like live streaming and sound, especially, and sort of because that is such of a that industry gets there's definitely a lot of opportunity there, even with COVID, and then using that as a jumping off point to do sort of my own more independent stuff. So I feel like a lot of people think they need to have sort of and plans are important, but to me, like, a lot of it comes from the experience itself.
I would absolutely agree with that, for sure. And you also don't know where an opportunity is going to come. You may meet someone on one of those jobs that ends up leading to the next job, and you get introduced to somebody else. And going back to the passion, you have to just really love what you're going to do. And no matter what that is, if it's, whether it's doing industrials in reality or live shows or whatever, you have to just really love it. Or you're editing and doing sustainability or something like that, right? That part of it too is, and I guess I want to ask about that a little bit of what you see there. But going back to you, Ben, I think the live part of it, especially, and unfortunately with COVID, certainly has affected the live shows, but also has opened up new avenues, like even just doing this kind of stuff of doing Zoom meetings versus being in the same room together. And, so it definitely has opened up another part of all of this stuff. So that's great. Serena, you editing and sustainability. Tell me about the sustainability part of it. Like it's a major,
Yeah, so I'm minoring in sustainability, and I would just love to connect the two. And I'm really interested in documentary films, and I'll just see these videos on sustainability. And I'm like, oh, I could do that. That would be really cool. So yeah, I'm looking for a way to connect that.
Right. There's certainly a way, and especially now, there's so many different places to see all that content and, YouTube or Vimeo or whatever. But I think there's also a huge interest in all of that, because I think everything we're seeing now with supply chain issues, and I was watching this thing on, what was the name of the company? But it's a Hawaiian company, and basically they're trying to plant 1 billion trees. And it was for an investor, former guy who was he was the CEO of Reddit or something like that. Anyway, so they're trying to plant 1 billion trees, and then also doing things like desalination of the water along the coast and stuff like that. So fascinating stuff. And I think, and actually, at one point I won't go down. But I think that's one of those things that I think, especially with your experience of editing, can inform, having both of those things is amazing. You can use both of those pieces to tell a story that I think somebody like me, who knows nothing about the sustainability part of it, and, loves to throw out paper towels and plastic, and just, that's what I love doing the most, polluting. So, I think that's something that you could inform people like me a lot more.
Yeah,
than anyone else could.
just spreading
That's
awareness in a creative way, instead of just telling people oh, here are the facts, making a beautiful creative video on it. It's really cool.
Cool. Nice. There's other DPs in there, right? There's who else? Cole wanted to be one of those, cinematography. Who else? Emily. Is there a documentary in there? Because you work with Serena on this. Is this, or is it all narrative, or what do you guys?
I am minoring in biology, so maybe doing some underwater filming, cinematography, something like that. I do like studying, I'm a huge fan of shark conservation, so maybe filming sharks in their natural environment would help people understand why we need them for our ecosystems. Or just narrative filmmaking and cinematography. I do I like lens flares, and I like, different lighting situations. Sometimes walking down the street, I'll envision the shot, and then I'll just film it for stock footage that I'll use on a later basis. But, I don't know, just different things like that I like to do.
Who else wants to shoot? Emily? Right?
Yeah. I'm a big fan of cinematography, and every time I would see a picture, I'd picture how I would film it, or what kind of music would go with it, or just think of a story to go. Pretty much as just telling a story through a lens, and I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, very nice. Michael, you were focused on more indies, right?
Yeah, I like a lot of like independent cinema. But also adding on to what Emily was just saying, like I kind of got my start or my love for film started with photography. So I was doing a lot of like still photos and doing like time lapse stuff.
Cool.
But like the idea of kind of using the camera lens, I guess, to like as compared to like a paintbrush or a canvas, I think is kind of cool.
I agree. Yeah. It's great. It's amazing what you can do just with your own phone and, you know, like the 13 Pro or whatever you've got in your pocket that is like shooting ProRes or even the cinematic mode or whatever kind of stuff, but like just grabbing anything that as you're walking around and finding something that it's interesting. It's amazing what you can do. Who else? Blake, editing, right?
Yeah, I'm really into editing. I've been doing it ever since I was little, so it's just kind of been really picking it up. And I really want to focus on it here. So that.
Do you cut the other students' projects, or what do you do?
Yeah, so I work for like a company, Microsoft, and I do marketing videos for them.
Okay.
So like I do a lot of that. I've edited a couple of other people's projects here, so.
Cool, great. Great, and then so wait, somebody who's, there's a sophomore, there's junior, and then who else? Oh, Brad, you're a senior, is that right? Bradford or Brad, sorry.
It's just Brad.
Okay. And you're focused on directing and editing, or what was it again, or writing?
Directing and writing.
Okay, so like what kind of stuff?
I don't know. I basically can do all sorts of genres.
What's your favorite?
I like either drama or comedy, basically. Something that people can just get in and watch.
Yeah. So are you writing something right now, or are you?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. Do you want to talk about that, or is it
yeah,
top
sure.
secret?
Sorry.
No. I'm just curious. I know. I also don't. I don't always talk about what I'm working on, so I get it.
Yeah.
So I'm cool with that.
I'm working on a TV show pilot that's sort of a dark comedy about demon hunting.
Okay, awesome, cool. I gather there's a certain love of like, I mean, given your background, you know, I'm seeing a little bit of a trend here, you know, but some people have normal, just, you know, Drennan backgrounds, and then others are in the galaxy, or.
And then there's me with hand.
Yeah. But this, like, it's Stallone, right? That's the yeah.
It's the funniest part of the whole movie.
Yeah.
With
for sure.
all the
awesome.
various positions and work that you've had, what's been the most interesting for you? And ultimately, when the film magic wand, the film with the industry wand taps you on the head, what do you get to do for the rest of your career there? What are you most interested in?
Great questions. Yeah, I'll just say first, you know, it's just always been a privilege to be able to do this and to make a living doing what I love doing. You know, I'm very much more focused on creating my own stuff, and whether that's writing and directing or directing great stories, and that's certainly been always my passionate, you know, the passion part of this. You know, would I live in LA? I don't know. My work is here, but you know, that's you know, a certain part of the business that, unless you're in New York, LA, or Boston or Atlanta, I guess, you know, there isn't too many other places to go in the United States for work, for what I like to do. You know, but sorry, what was the first part of that question? What was the first question? I kind of answered the second already, Tom, but like I jumped.
Yeah. You've done such a variety of things, both on the administrative side and kind of discovering film. And then as you moved up, to some pretty influential positions and work. What has been your favorite?
So the favorite, I guess, is a really tricky thing to answer because every single thing I've worked on has been a different experience, and I've learned something from it. I guess, one of my favorites really was when I first started working at Florentine with Ken, and just because that gave me an introduction to the documentary side, which I really had no interest in whatsoever, and learned so much, and learned so much from him, and learned so much about jazz and Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony, and some a little bit earlier, late 90s kind of thing. But so my favorite experiences have always been just like walking on set and seeing amazing set design. I remember when I got to LA on the Time Machine, we got in on Friday, we met up with some of the people we knew, and they brought us down to the biggest stage on Warner's that had this big cliff and a waterfall and this huge lake. And it was just amazing. And they had these tunnels that were for the monster, creature and everything. So I just love, and Old School was another time where it blew my mind that you could build a house on stage. And I guess I just never knew that that was a thing that you might do, where they just completely built that house on stage and lit it in a way that looked real. And so to answer that, I guess my favorite experiences have always been just exploring the sets and walking a set and seeing just that line between reality and, where you walk into a stage and you see this other world that doesn't, exist anywhere else. I just love that part of it for sure. Yeah.
I can agree.
One person oh, sorry. I was going to say one person. Do we hear from everybody real quick though? Doesn't Show want to do music?
Yep. Show to
Yes.
that show. You want to talk to Tim about your passions?
I'm into hip hop music, like old school hip hop music and house music. And I've been making that music.
What are you using?
I use sampler.
Like on Logic, you mean, or?
I mean, there's a sampler called Machine MK3.
Yeah.
It's a
Sure.
native instrument sampler, and I also use Logic Pro and some things. I usually use this software to make beats.
Cool. Awesome. So now I know who I can go to for some beats, because that's like the rhythm, the beats and everything. I can't do anything like that, but I can hit a bunch of keys and make an orchestra. But yeah, fantastic.
Thank you.
Folks,
All right.
it's been
Did we
generous
hit
enough
everybody?
to- No, go ahead.
No, I just want to make sure. Did we hit everybody? Did we? Yeah,
I think so.
I think so.
You've been generous enough to spend at least an hour with us. Thank you. Does anybody have any final questions for Tim before we let him go and live his West Coast life? Nothing there. We all have a mutual friend, all of us who went into space. What did you think about that? Did you?
I'm actually a little disappointed he didn't bring you along. What was that? What he didn't?
I asked to go
he didn't want
along, but he
invite you up
wouldn't
to
let me.
space with him.
Hmm?
Selfish.
Yes, kind of silly.
I met him on Miss Congeniality 2, and I remember specifically the moment where we met, and I was walking up to him, and I must have had this weird look, and I'm not a big Trekkie guy, but like I must have just had this Trekkie look, because he just looked at me like, oh shit, what? I'm sorry. oh no, what am I about to into here? And I enjoy with him. I mean, that's whether it's Sandra Bullock and Tim Allen and Bill Shatner or anybody else. I mean, it's a great experience when you get to work with people that you're familiar with their work. And also the other flip side is that, even if you're not doing that kind of thing, as long as you really love what you're doing, you guys are in an amazing place right now and time. And there's so much craziness in the world right now, but at the same time, you have such an amazing opportunity to, whether it's, you know, doing something with sustainability or wrestling or, you know, anything that really just resonates with you and you're passionate about, there's an audience for that, and you can make a living. You know, it's not film related at all, but there's something to be said about investing and saving your money, so you have a little bit of what they call FU money, so you can turn down the job that you don't want to do with the person you don't want to work with, and so, you know, then you can focus on your passion. So I just want to say, you guys, thank you for me, and you guys, I look forward to you all hiring me on to your next jobs, and it's going to be great. Can't wait. Yeah.
Right. Terrific that you've been as successful and as you are, that you can, as you say, have some FU money and live the kind of life and do the kind of work that you like. I'm very happy for you.
Thank you, Tom. Well, I appreciate everything you did too, and Larry. But
yep, we still have a running joke, you know that.
Yep, very much.
Okay.
But yeah, no, Keen was a great experience. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your time, and please stay in touch. We'll take care.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure to
Bye,
meet you
Jim.
all. Thank you.